Hey Kevin, how we doing today? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. How we doing, Garrett?
Not too much. I understand we're going to talk about some collections tools today.
Yeah, all the fun stuff. Getting paid.
Let's see who's in red and 90 plus due that we can circle back to quickly.
Exactly right.
Well, cool. We're at 7 o'clock, so we'll get started, and we can also send out the recording after if anyone needs it or has a coworker that wants to rewatch it. So let's jump into it.
Sweet. Yeah. AR, or as we like to call it, AR collections, obviously super important in construction. Notorious industry for paying slow. So making sure you've got a good process to stay on top of your outstanding AR, nothing slipping through the cracks, that you understand when you're getting paid. You've got good processes and systems to follow up on those outstanding invoices. All really important. So when you go to the AR module, what you'll see at the top is just some KPIs, so you know what your total outstanding amount is. Importantly, we like to call out the number of invoices that spread over, right? It's a big difference whether you've got 2 million outstanding across 5 invoices. You just got to hammer those five versus if it's spread out over hundreds. Knowing what you currently have outstanding in retention, always great. And then this summary that basically tells you what's the total that you generated in new invoices and received in cash on the month. And then you can toggle it to look at the week, quarter, year as well. So all really good ways just to kind of understand at a macro level, where do we stand in our current AR? And then kind of going hand in hand with that is this chart here. And this is obviously what we all really care about, right? What's the aging status for all of my outstanding AR? How much do I have in 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, and 90 plus? This is actually a pretty good example we're looking at right now. This is what you want this chart to look like, right? Starts high at 0 to 30, and then each bar gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then we can kind of see what's in our retention as well. One
I'm,
nice thing
I'm,
here that I'm not sure if everyone's ever done this before, but if you click on this retention, what it's going to do is it's going to give you this modal that actually tells you all of the projects that you have outstanding retention on. So you can look at what the project is, the percent complete, the build, and the retainage. And this is really handy because what we see a lot of contractors do is they try and negotiate terms in their contract that says, hey, when I am 50% complete, I am able to reduce my retention to 50%. So this project right here, 24003 Wall Street, great example. I can see I'm coming up on the 50% complete. I've still got all 10% sitting out in retention. I might want to start having those discussions with my client that say, hey, when we get to 50% here, we like to reduce the retention down to 5% or from 10% to 5%. So understanding kind of what the breakdown is of retention on all your projects, really good. And then down here below, we obviously have the chart that actually lists out all of the projects or all the invoices by project, invoice amount, amount due, aging status, invoice date, projected payment date, and so on. Really good to be able to sort on the different columns here. So if you want to sort on projects, you can kind of see everything grouped together. That's great. If you want to sort on amount due to understand what are my biggest ticket items I've got hanging out there, that's a great way to do it as well. I also encourage people to always leverage the filters. The big one that I always like looking at is the project manager filter. It's really a good way, especially if you're giving your PM access to this tool. Basically say, hey, go in there, filter on your projects, understand what you have outstanding, really empower the project managers to take ownership over their invoices, to be contacting the clients. I think we see this in a lot of contractors. It's kind of like, hey, when the project manager sends the invoice, it's accounting's problem. Then, they're going to follow up. They'll figure out when they get paid. But usually it's the project manager that has the relationships with the client, and they're going to be the ones that are able to negotiate a quicker payment. So really using this as a way to empower your PM to get into the system, manage their invoices on all their projects, and to follow up. Really good way to make sure people are on top of it.
I like
Um,
it. So not
yeah,
not not much as scolding them as just kind of make them more aware of what the low hanging fruit is and really
yeah,
kind of tying those ends up.
exactly. It's really just about empowering them. I mean, if they've got to go to the accounting department to get an aging report in terms of what's outstanding, chances are they're probably not going to be very on top of their payments. But if they can just log in here, run a quick filter and see, it's going to give them a lot more good information to act quickly. But the column here that I always like to focus on is this projected payment date. And this is something we hear time and time again when we talk to different contractors in the industry. is it's not only that like owners or clients are slow to pay, it's that there's a real unpredictability or unpredictableness to it as well. It's kind of like, hey, they say you're going to get paid next week. You call them up next week and they're like, oh, the check got lost in the mail and we have to reissue it, or oh, we're waiting on another signature, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of kind of unpredictableness in terms of when that projected payment date is. And this becomes really critical to make sure you're managing your cash flow correctly. All right. It's understanding when the cash is actually going to come in the door. So it's really good if you kind of just click on an invoice here to go in and say, okay, right now, I'm sure, and I think I'm going to get paid on March 31st. That's 2 weeks ago. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I'm going to come in here and put in a new projected payment date. So let's say I think it's April 30th is when I'm going to get paid now. I can add any comments here. I can even kind of select the root cause for why the payment's late. Maybe there's, missing paperwork. Maybe the client hasn't been paid by their client is. Whatever it is, I can detail this here. And that becomes really powerful when you're looking at a payment and saying, hey, why haven't we gotten paid in the last 2 weeks? To be able to see these comments and kind of, okay, this is the third time that they've delayed us when they said we're going to get paid here. And you can kind of see that history of all those adjustments. What's also great here is you can kind of see the whole history on this project. So you can see all of your outstanding invoices. So I can see I've got 3 invoices outstanding on this project, one for 75 days, 46 days, and 15 days. And then if it's a project where I've actually already been paid on some, it will list the number of days that it's taken to get paid. And I can start to see what that average days to pay is on a project. So let's see if we can find one here. Yeah, here's a good one. So on here, I can see, okay, it's historically taken 78.5 days for my client to pay me on this project. And that's across, looks like over a dozen invoices. So that's a pretty good track record there. So I can see this is, hey, this has been pending for 31 days. Well, based on their history, I realistically am not going to expect to get paid for another 78 days. So what I can do here up at the top, rather than just entering a projected payment date, I can select this, which basically tells me, hey, rather than you trying to predict when the client is going to pay, just use their historical record and say, okay, based on their history on this project, 78 days out from that invoice date is going to be June 2nd. So that's going to be what I'm going to use for my new projected payment date. Now, that doesn't mean you should make peace with it and be like, hey, we're not going to get paid for 78 days. You should definitely be working with the client to get paid quicker. Something that we found really powerful too is even if you just give them this number, just say, hey, on average, it's taking you guys 78 days to pay on this project. And sometimes it's been as long as 142 days. Having those data points, the hard facts of how long it's taking them to pay, it's a really powerful tool when you go to negotiate with them and say, hey, can we speed up these payments here? What can we do? So that's a really important one here, just making sure you're updating that projected payment date, just because it's going to make it much easier when it comes to managing your cash flow.
Do you see an upside to maybe giving yourself a little bit better cushion on that date? Like, we said, 78.5, maybe going to 90, or where are the upsides and downsides of that?
Yeah, I think you obviously always want to be the most realistic, but if you're going to be cautious one way or the other, it's probably better to be conservative than aggressive. Because what we
Right.
see a lot is really what you care about is managing your cash flow. So if you are being aggressive in terms of when you're going to show to get paid, and then it doesn't come through, maybe that puts you in a bad position from a cash flow standpoint because you thought you're going to have that payment in the door to facilitate other payments. Now, you could easily make the argument the other way that like, hey, you don't want to get content. And, the only way you're going to get paid quick in this industry is if you are aggressive about it. So we're going to set aggressive dates and we're going to pursue them. So it's really just understanding, hey, what is your culture in your company? If we kind of are conservative on those dates, are we going to be lax and kind of content, or are we still going to be aggressive when we do that? And that's something that we try to help you facilitate with is it could be hard, right? If you've got 92 outstanding invoices and that's spread across 30 different clients, following up on each individual invoice can be very tedious. So what we do is we create this where you can basically create template emails that will automatically trigger to be sent to the client. So if you go in here and you create a new template, you can give it a name, a description, and then you can set the number of days that template's going to automatically be triggered. So if I set it for, 20, let's actually do 45 days. That means when it's 45 days past due, that template is automatically going to be triggered. You can create a default subject line. You can use these form fields to auto-populate, so you can include the company name, the invoice date, amount due, invoice amount, create a draft email, and then basically that allows you to apply that template to any individual project. So when I go to my setup field here, I can select those templates. So I can select which ones I want to apply, who I want to send that template to. So whoever my counterpart is with the client that's going to be facilitating the payments, and then who I want it to be from. And then what that allows you to do is when that invoice becomes a certain number of days past due, you'll see it automatically get populate here on the notification section. You can then go say, all right, this looks good. I want to send it out. And you can basically automate that email process. So it's a really good way to make sure that you're staying on top of your invoices, that you're following up with your clients, that's nothing slipping through the cracks. It's basically just kind of automating those email notifications to just say, hey, just checking in, what's the status of our payment? And obviously the more severe it's overdue, the more severe the language is that you can use asking about that payment status.
I like it. Keeps things neat if we have a lot of past due invoices. So
Yep.
do you have a
Uh,
you have a certain maybe time frame you see people saying these are? I know we highlighted the 45. Next, would you maybe go 60, 80, something of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of kind of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I would say, hey, obviously give your client 30 days, but after that, I mean, I don't think you can be too persistent, right? If you want to send a follow-up email every week, I think that's gonna bear you really good results. Maybe that's a little too much, but you want to say, hey, every 15 days, so 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. Once it's kind of beyond 60 days, then yeah, you want to be as persistent as you can be. So yeah, I think the more the better. Um, so one other thing that's really important here, when managing your AR is you kind of want to make sure you're managing your AP kind of hand in hand with that. So what we have is if you go to the AP module, what you can do is when you update this projected payment date for a specific AP invoice, um, rather than just coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to plan on paying this vendor or sub on April 12th. What you can do is you can link it to a AR invoice. So I can see this invoice date is dated in February. So I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to link it to my AR invoice that I submitted in February to the client. So basically, I'm not going to pay them. I'm not going to pay my vendors or subs until I get paid by my client. So if I link it, that projected payment date is now automatically going to be 7 days after the projected payment date that AR invoice is carrying. So if I go in and update my projected payment date for my AR invoice, then that AP invoice is going to update accordingly as well. So it's a really good way to make sure that you're not paying your vendors or your subs until you're paid by your client.
Great feature there. I like that.
Um, Anything I may have missed, Garrett? I think I hit on most of it here.
Yeah, I was just kind of going through our bullet points here. I believe we got through the 4 or 5 we really wanted to touch on. Anything else you maybe want to bring up with the filters or sorting or
Yeah, I mean the filter sorting, you can edit some of the columns too, but I would say from a high level, the big things that you kind of want to be doing in these tools, that I would take away from this is one, make sure you're on top of your retention. That's always kind of a good opportunity to maybe get some of that reduced earlier than you would otherwise. Two, make sure your project managers have access to the system. They can come in here, use that PM filter, right? The more you empower your PMs, the quicker or the better they're going to be able to manage those payment terms. Three, really kind of work on making sure that that projected payment date is accurate. Again, kind of reviewing the payment history on that project. Four, set up the notifications so you're kind of automatically following up with your clients. And then the fifth point, link your AP invoices to your AR invoices. So from a cash flow standpoint, you're making sure that you're not paying vendors and subs until you're paid by your client.
I like it. A lot of good features in here. Make sure the cash keeps flowing in on time.
Exactly. Yep. Cash is king.
Always. Well, we just hit 15, so we'll kind of open up for questions, give everyone a minute, and If not, thanks for your time today. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next one.
They're raising their hands. Uh, Norma, I don't think we can allow you to talk if you want to drop your question in either the chat or the Q&A. Does AR care about project status? So what we do is we only show outstanding invoices. So we make the assumption that any outstanding invoices you have will still be a active project. So you'll notice here it is only invoices that are still open. Once an invoice has been paid and closed, it will drop off this list. So assuming that a project is closed and everything's been paid, you shouldn't see anything on the AR report.
Good question. And then Norma typed theirs as well.
Yeah, so we don't create any templates kind of out of the box, but I would encourage you to either reach out to Garrett, or if you're still in implementation, Denver, about setting up a time where we can kind of walk you through kind of setting up a couple, because it's a pretty easy process once you're used to it, and we could probably create a few templates with you in the first 15-30 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, it looks like that's it for today, so I guess we'll wrap it up.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate the time, Garrett.
Yep, you as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, Al. Thanks for 15 minutes today.
Thanks, Garrett.
Bye.
Bye.